Hi, I'm Eli Kranzberg, and in this video, we're going to look at the new grand piano instrument, Session Keys. Session Keys comes in two different versions, the S Grand and the Y Grand, and each contains two different sample sets. Now the concert mode, which is what we're looking at now, is an open kind of roomy sound, and the samples were recorded with an open lid and classical microphone placement designed to capture the piano's natural string and body resonances as well as all the natural damper and pedal noises. We can switch to the second mode, the studio mode, by clicking on this button here, and this was captured with no lid and a close miking for a dry, direct sound with more attack and punch that really works nicely in modern arrangements with lots of instruments playing. So let's listen to both pianos in both modes. I'm going to switch between the two, and we'll start with the Y Grand in concert mode. And the S Grand. The piano section at the bottom contains controls for volume output here, the pentamorph to switch between different sound sets, and some pedaling controls. Now the dynamic response knob acts kind of like an audio compressor to limit the volume of the instrument. As we turn it counterclockwise like that, all the samples are still being triggered, but the softer samples are played back at a louder volume. And as we turn it clockwise, we get more of a wider dynamic range where the soft samples are played back softly and the loud samples are played back loudly. Now the pentamorph over here is used to either switch or morph between the piano's different sound sets, and it works in conjunction with the tonality setting window over here. And we use this to shape various aspects of the piano sound. We can control the harmonics, inharmonic and sympathetic vibrations, and these are great for all the subtle resonances that are generated by the piano strings. And we can use the command key to snap back to the default values. We have attack and decay for the piano samples. We have noise controls for the pedal noise, key noise, and release noise, and a reverse volume. And I'm going to turn this up, and we'll get to that in a moment when we look at the pentamorph section. So here we can switch between the different settings by clicking on the name, and it'll switch. And here, when we click there in reverse, we're going to hear only reversed samples. When we're in aerial mode, we hear the reverse samples and the mechanical noises. Based on what we have set there. The tonality mode in the pentamorph plays back all of the acoustic samples with all the settings that we have available here. And this is where the reverse setting comes into play. It adds a kind of reverse envelope to the sustain of a note. And when we're in acoustic mode here, it's all of these tonality settings except for this reverse mode. So we hear the natural envelope of the sound. And in mechanic mode here, we hear just the mechanical noises. And we have a gain button here that can add an offset to the gain to increase or reduce the volume. But the real fun comes when we drag between and morph between the different settings, and we can do that by clicking in the middle and dragging up and down like that, or by grabbing the puck and moving it around like that. lots of creative sound design possibilities become available with that. We also have an effects section to help shape the sound. There are equalizer, compressor, stereo width, delay, and reverb sections with various controls that can each be toggled on or off with these buttons. To save presets that store your tonality and effects settings, hit the plus button up here, type in the name you want, and then hit the OK button or X to delete a preset, and scroll between the factory presets by clicking there and selecting between them or using the next previous buttons. The soft pedal, when it's activated, gives a less loud, slightly muffled kind of sound, and the sostenuto pedal button, when it's activated, like on a real piano, it acts kind of like a separate sustain pedal for keys that are pressed when it's down. And further, we have some settings here. We can adjust the tuning of the instrument and the velocity curves, and we have a silent key function, and basically when this is activated, and you activate it just by pressing it on or off, when it's activated, you can softly press and hold the keys and it prevents virtual hammers from touching the virtual strings. We also have a half pedal mode that will result in shorter sustains when you use it with a damper pedal that sends continuous messages. The Animator is a MIDI piano phrase player that's pre-programmed with a variety of styles. We get to it from this tab here, and we can turn it on or off with that button. Now, at the core of the Animator engine is the chord detection algorithm here, and there's two modes, loose or tight, and it determines how closely it's going to track your playing. If you play single notes, it'll determine that it's a major chord. And when you play multiple notes, it'll analyze them and spell out the chord for you. And one of the really interesting functions of the chord detection is that it allows for independent bass notes. So you can hold a chord in the upper register and change the bass notes to generate some really interesting harmonies. You can see the detection here or watch the notes on the keyboard at the bottom. So some really nice serendipity is possible with that. Now the idea with the Animator is that we have these songs and they each contain the 6 phrases that we see laid out on this little virtual keyboard here, and we can switch between the songs from this drop-down menu. And as I switch songs, you'll see that the sound source changes as well. And when this chain link icon is enabled like it is now, we'll call up the associated sound sets with each song, or we can disable that and leave it on whichever sound source it's on at the moment. I'll switch to another preset and we'll see that it's changed sound sources now since the link is enabled. Now we have a browser here that displays the same songs that we see in this drop-down menu. Here we get some additional information. We get time signature and tempo information, and we see the 6 component MIDI files that comprise each song. So here we can switch between the different phrases by clicking on the keys. Or by using the lower range of our keyboard controller for key switches, or we can program pads for that. Now we can customize the songs by scrolling through the browser, and we can just double click to change the phrases and add one in to make a custom grouping of these phrases. So once you've customized your layout, you can save that as your own Animator song by using the plus button over here, typing in a name, and then hitting OK or X to delete it, and it'll appear in the drop-down menu here. We can control the 3 levels of complexity for each phrase with modulation. You can see my incoming modulation on this fader over here. I'll select another pattern, and let's start low. And we can also control velocity with the pitch bend wheel over here. And again, you can track my pitch bend on that fader over there. And of course, we can also control the velocity with touch sensitivity. And we can use this to morph between how much we want key velocity versus pitch bend to influence the velocity that's triggered. The phrases can also be quantized. They can be swung, and they can be played back at double time or half time. Smart Chords is a system of one-finger chord triggering that allows you to play musically correct chords that conform to a specific key in Chord Map, and you can play them with one finger on either a keyboard or a pad. and we turn it on over here. We define the root note over here, and let's say I'll choose A, for example, and then we choose the chord map here. We can choose between major, minor, dominant, or Dorian, and it'll map the chords to the white notes starting on your keyboard on C. So for example, when I hit C, that's actually an A chord now. Now it's a D flat. And we use the black keys as modifiers. So again, I'll go back to A, for example, and I'm going to pop open the keyboard with this button over here. And when I hit the C sharp note, it's going to act as a modifier that'll voice the chord in first inversion. D sharp will voice it in second inversion. F sharp will make it a sus4 chord. G sharp, a major 7 chord. And A sharp, a major 9 chord. We can further use the modifiers at the low end of the keyboard or press these buttons to add a bass note or the fifth. We can trigger with the mouse as well. And when we're doing that, we can assign the octave here and humanize how we want the notes spread out, how tightly we want them grouped together or not, and the velocity as well. And we can work with pad assignments from here, and this works great with Native Instruments Machine. And we can also use the smart controls to feed into the Animator, so we can have one finger chord triggering and turn on Animator at the same time. And then of course we can add pentamorph and really have some fun. So that's Session Keys. This is Eli Kranzberg signing out. Enjoy and have fun.